Hi there and welcome to my channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Abigail and I make motherhood and lifestyle videos. And if you have been here before, then welcome back. Come on in, join the family and get cozy. Today's video we're going to be talking about what happened after I gave birth. So I've already made a video about my positive birth story and what happened during birth, like during labour and giving birth, and all that happened around that. So if you've not watched that, go and watch that first. But this is kind of the after bit and what happened next. So when I was pregnant, I really loved watching this kind of video because it made me feel much more relaxed about going into birth and kind of knowing what's going to happen throughout all of it, and it just helps put your mind at ease, I feel like. So if you are pregnant, then I hope this video is helpful for you. If so, leave a comment down below, and yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe as well. To give you a bit of background, I gave birth in a hospital in the United Kingdom, and we have the National Health Service here, so the NHS. So all this stuff that I got, the care that I got was all free. So just a kind of bit of background. Obviously it's different if you're in a different country, but if you're pregnant and you're going to give birth in a hospital on the NHS in the UK, and more specifically in Scotland, then this video should be really helpful for you because the experience should be very, very similar. Also, on a side note, excuse the wetness of my hair, but my baby's just gone down for a sleep and I'm like rushing to film this video now before he wakes up. So yeah, if that bugs you, I'm really sorry, but what can you do? So if we want to get ourselves kind of mentally in the zone, then kind of take yourself to me. I've just given birth. My baby's been put on my chest for some skin to skin time, and he's kind of just snuggling there, and we're kind of having a very short snuggle. And it was a very short snuggle because I had an episiotomy, and so they had to stitch me up. So I had about 2 minutes maybe of skin to skin time with my baby, and then I got whisked along back to the labour room, the room where I was having, like, I was in labour. And then they took the baby off of me and they gave it to Philip, and Philip's my husband, and he had some skin to skin time with the baby as well, while I was being stitched up. After that, I had my very first attempt at breastfeeding, which was not the most successful time ever. What happened was he had the first kind of tiny bit of colostrum kind of milk stuff, and it went down his throat and he choked so badly and he went purple. So we like ran over to the midwife or whoever was nearby and was like, take the baby, like what's wrong with him? And it was such a kind of scary time because he literally went purple within a few seconds, and they whisked him away and put him on like a baby resuscitation unit and like made sure he was okay. Thankfully he was fine, and they just think that it was a bit of mucus that was stuck in his throat from after giving birth. But that was absolutely terrifying, and because of that, every time he even eats a bit of food, now he's old enough to eat food, every time that anything like that happens, I can't, like, I think he's gonna choke. Every time he gags, I'm like, oh, I'm just terrified of it happening again because of that incident in the hospital. But that was kind of the first attempt at breastfeeding, and then after that it kind of went smoothly from there on. Then we did the whole kind of phone our parents thing. We told them it was a boy, not a girl, which is another story, but we phoned them, we told them the news, and we had our kind of traditional tea and toast. So the NHS nurses came and gave us our tea and toast, and I sat there kind of absolutely shattered, just kind of taking my tea and taking my toast. On a side note, I couldn't drink tea the whole of my pregnancy because I just went off it completely. Like, it made me feel so sick just to think about drinking tea, but as soon as I gave birth, I could drink tea. I was quite happy. So if you've got any like aversions during pregnancy, they might disappear just straight afterwards, because that's what's happened to me. Then after I'd eaten my tea and toast, I went and had a shower. I was dying to wash my hair, but the lady told me not to wash my hair because I was too weak and I might get dizzy, I guess, and fall over. So I didn't wash my hair, but I had a lovely, lovely shower. And then I came back into the labour room, and there was no rooms ready for us, or there was no space ready for us on the postnatal ward. So we got to stay in that room for about 4 or 5 hours, and honestly, that was the best sleep of my entire life, those 4 and 5 hours. Me and Philip and the baby, literally we just went to sleep for 4 or 5 hours straight. It was amazing because I was exhausted. So I was in labour for 3 days, so like 3 nights, basically 3-ish days, and I was absolutely exhausted and I needed all my strength I could get to look after this baby, you know. So I was so glad. That was like absolute bliss having those 4 or 5 hours sleep that we had then. I do think this is unusual actually. I think you normally go straight to the postnatal ward, so if that doesn't happen to you, that's probably why. But they just didn't have any room for us, so that's why we got kind of lucky and we got to stay in our own personal room for a bit of time and have a little bit of personal time with the baby. So I really enjoyed that. And then by late afternoon we I was on to the postnatal ward. So I gave birth at 8:46 a.m. and by like late afternoon, maybe 5ish, 6 o'clock, I was on the postnatal ward. I then had dinner, and the dinner in the hospital tasted absolutely disgusting. It tasted, well, it didn't even taste disgusting, it just tasted plasticky and like manufactured, you know? If you ever had that kind of mashed potato in like the packets, like the powder mashed potato, which you put like water on and then eat, it was like that, which is kind of disgusting. And you think you'd want something a bit more nutritious if you're kind of in a hospital, and most people are like sick in a hospital, and if you're getting your strength back you want something a bit more nutritious, I'd have thought. But that's what they had. It was plasticky, it didn't taste good at all, and the only thing that tasted actually like it was what it was the broccoli. That tasted like frozen broccoli, you know, that you reheat, but everything else tasted like it was out of a packet. So I would recommend taking some snacks. That's one thing I didn't have in my hospital bag, which I really wish I did have now, is some snacks with me, or like some proper food, because the hospital food was not good in my opinion. I was also really nervous about having to look after a newborn by myself for the first time, because in the hospital they don't let your husband stay the night. He has to go home, like he's only allowed there during visiting hours, which is like morning till late afternoon, evening I think. And yeah, they don't let your husband stay because there's no room for them to sleep, I guess. So I was kind of terrified about looking after my like newborn baby by myself for the first time ever. But in a way I was also not that bothered at the time. Like I was more nervous before I went into labour, but then by this point I was so exhausted that I was just like on survival mode, and kind of like whatever it took to get through the day or through the night is what I did. So there I was on the postnatal ward. I went on my phone for a little bit. Philip left pretty sharpish actually, like before visiting time ended, because he told me he was exhausted from all the staying awake and whatever he was doing. So he was exhausted, so he went home to sleep. And yeah, I kind of sat on my phone for a bit. The nurses bought me lots of painkillers, which is quite nice. Like I wouldn't have thought to take painkillers, but they bought me them, which probably helped with the episiotomy pain as a little bit as well. So that was really nice. And also the beds on the ward had like the pull around curtains that you could pull all the way around you, which I thought was really great, because I wanted my privacy a lot, especially because I was breastfeeding and everyone else in the ward was bottle feeding, and I was a little bit nervous about breastfeeding for the first time, obviously, and I didn't really want everyone like staring at me and like, I don't know, judging, or like, yeah, I needed my privacy for the first kind of time that I was breastfeeding. There was 6 people on the ward, so there were 6 mums, and like their partners were there as well on the ward, including myself. The other things that I would say about the ward was that the ward was never dark, so I would always say take an eye mask with you if you're going to be in hospital, because it wasn't dark and it was really hard to sleep if you didn't have an eye mask. Thankfully I did remember my eye mask. And the other thing I would say is it was fairly noisy. The nurses come and go all night talking to people. You can buzz a nurse if you want, so then they come and talk to you. I had a lady next to me that had a C-section, so she was kind of up and down half the night, because obviously she was in a bit more pain because she didn't have like a natural birth. So that's the thing I would say about that. And overall I didn't think that the postnatal ward nurses were as good as the labour ward, like midwives and those kind of people. Like the bit before birth bit was much better, the care I felt, than the after birth bit. But then I felt it was more important to have better care before. So it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of what you think about it, I guess. But I thought the people afterwards, the nurses at the aftercare, were just a lot more overworked. I felt like they were a bit harassed, which isn't their fault, I guess. But I just felt like they didn't look after you quite as well as the people and the midwives before did. Oh, and also hospitals are roasting hot. I don't care who tells you to take socks, like thick socks. Like why? Like I was roasting hot, and thankfully I took things that were cool, and even then I was roasting hot. So yeah, bear that in mind. Don't take like your thick socks and your thick like dressing gowns and stuff. I took like a super thin dressing gown, and even then I was too warm. So yeah, I would just bear that in mind as well. And then it was the first night. Ironically, the first night I had the most sleep that I was gonna have for like the next 3-4 months, because I don't know, Samuel was just tired from being born, I guess. So he slept a good majority of the night, which meant that I got to sleep a good majority of the night as well. The only things that were really stressful about the first night was that the nurses came in about 4 AM I think, and were like, have you fed the baby yet? And I was like, no, because he's asleep. Still to this day I don't know why. Like are you meant to wake your baby up when they're asleep to feed them at night? Like, I've never done that in my life since leaving the hospital, but they told me to do it in the hospital, so I was like, okay, I'll wake him up. And he was like sleeping. He did not want to eat food, which probably made breastfeeding a bit harder. So I don't know if I would necessarily recommend to do that, but that's what happened. I did that, and I kind of was still getting into the swing of it with breastfeeding. Also, what else? Oh yeah, the first nappy was an absolute disaster. So the first nappy, as you probably know, is a meconium poo, which is just a really thick, black coloured, sticky, tar-like poo. It's literally the worst nappy you're going to change in your life, probably. It's definitely worse than the ones after that. But that first one was, like, for whatever reason, it's like a black disgustingness. And that was the first nappy that I'd ever changed in my life. So I've never changed like my wee cousin's nappies, or I don't really have any wee kids that I would have changed nappies for. So I've never changed a nappy before in my life. It was like 5 AM in the morning with all like the nurses out there that I didn't want to ask, because I was like too scared to ask them to help me. And I had this baby, and I was like, he was crying a bit because he was tired, obviously. And then I had his cot here, my bed here, and I was looking around holding this baby like, where do I put my baby to change him? Like, I thought there'd be a changing mat or something. But no, the hospital did not provide a changing mat. So that's another thing that I would probably take, actually. I would probably take these absorbent pads that I talk about in my newborn essentials video. Like absorbent pads to put on like the bed so I could change them properly without getting a mess. Because that first nappy, my goodness, I made a mess with that first nappy. Because I decided, like, his bed or my bed, that was like the choice. His bed or my bed, and I was like, I'll do my bed because at least he'll be clean when he goes back to his bed, you know. And yes, I did get poo on my bed, and it was disgusting, and I then had to go back to sleep on that bed. But at the same time, I was too shattered to really care about it. But yes, so take an absorbent pad, take some kind of sheeting, take something for your first nappy if you're going to be in a hospital, because they do not provide you with changing mats. But somehow I made it through the first night. It was okay, to be fair. I slept most of it, and there was that like little stressful bit in the middle where I had to breastfeed him and change his nappy, but apart from that, it was all good. And I woke up in the morning feeling a lot better, feeling like I'd had a half decent rest, you know, compared to staying awake the 3 previous nights. And then we had morning breakfast. So morning breakfast was better than the dinner. Like, it was a roll and jam or butter. Like, it's very difficult to mess up, but so like it tasted okay, and I had some tea and I felt fine about that. So, and then Philip came back, and my husband came back from being asleep. I think he came back like 11 o'clock, but he was shattered. He had more sleep than me, like the 3 previous nights, and he was still shattered. But yeah, he came back after that. And oh yeah, before that we had, so they came round, a lady came round and did like a hearing test on all the newborn babies. So that's the first thing that they give you, is like a hearing test, which I didn't know that at all. But they say like pass or fail if your baby's hearing's okay or not. So that's the first ever test I feel like the baby gets, apart from like the stuff that he gets just when he's born. And then also a student came round and was telling us, like giving us advice, I guess postpartum advice, which I didn't really find that helpful. Like, it was okay, but she was obviously like a student and she'd never given birth herself, and she was just kind of telling information from a leaflet, so it was okay. I didn't bother too much about that. One thing that I was quite annoyed about at the time was the nurses asked, do you want me to show you how to do a bath? And I was like, oh, that's a quite nice thing, like they can show you how to give your baby a bath. Like, no, don't, I wouldn't take them up on this, because it's like the worst bath your poor baby's gonna have of his life. So it was probably just this lady, to be fair. Like, she was again overworked, a bit harassed, but she kind of was like, take Simon's clothes off, like literally just in the ward. Like, we were just in the ward. She had like a basin of water. She was like, take Simon's clothes off. So I took all his clothes off. She like picked him up less. He was crying. She just didn't, she wasn't like bothered. She just like let him cry. And then she like took her, it was like holding the baby here. She put her hand in the water, like in the white basin, was like flicking it over him, and like rubbed his head a wee bit, flicked it over him, again, done, give me back. Simon's screaming by this point because he's freezing, the poor child, and she didn't do it very carefully at all. So like, that was not a good experience, and yes, thank you for that lovely nurse that did that. So I wouldn't bother with the bath if they ask you, do you want me to show you how to do a bath, because it's not how you would do it at home anyway. And then my husband came and I discharged myself and we went home with our newborn baby, which was the loveliest feeling ever. That child's brought so much happiness to our life, and yeah, ever since we leaving the hospital I've been on like this high from having a baby, because he's just so beautiful and so lovely, and I'm so happy. So if you're going to give birth, just know it's amazing and you will love it as well. So before I go on to like the aftercare that the NHS provides for you, like through the midwives and through the health visitors, I'm going to talk first of all about my postpartum recovery. I was going to say symptoms there, but it's not really symptoms, but it's like the thing is that like my body happened to my body after I gave birth and what that was like as well. So the first thing that happened was I had heavy bleeding, as you would expect. That lasted for about 2 weeks. I would say actually as well that people recommend lots of these fancy kind of products for postpartum, and you never really know what you need. I would say you don't really need any of them. The one things that you of course really need is like pads for your bleeding, like huge thick pads. The ones they give you at the hospital are great. Try and get as many of them from the hospital as you can, and then just buy like super thick ones out of Boots or Asda somewhere. And then also disposable pants. I talk about this in my hospital bag video. These are amazing. They're literally just pants, like big white pants, and I'll maybe insert a picture here or like go and watch the video. But they're big pants and they're disposable, so like you put like a pad on the bottom of the pants, and then once you're finished with the pants you just rip them off the bin. So that means you don't have to handle the mess of like washing pants with blood on them and different things like that as well. My next thing that I had was I had an episiotomy, so they cut me down there, and as a result I had to recover from that as well, and from the stitches. Recovery from that was fine. It was quite long. I'll actually link my video and you can just go and watch it. But it was like a slower recovery and it did take a while, but it wasn't like the worst pain ever at the time, and it healed pretty fast. It's just the after effects went on for a bit longer than I expected as well. And then of course my stomach was very saggy for the first month. It was like lots of extra skin and it looked kind of wrinkly. For the first few days it was really saggy, and then after a week or so it went a bit back, and then after the first couple of months it's not gone back to normal, but it's gone a lot like back in, and it's also like there's still a bit of extra skin there which might never go away. But if I worked out, like, which I should work out, if I worked out and I really wanted to, like I could get that all away. But it's just a bit softer than it was with no working out, and of course breastfeeding helps with that a lot as well, so that's great. And then of course I was very tired after giving birth. I'd stayed awake for so long, I was in pain for so long, and then you're like high performance trying to look after a newborn. So for I would say the first month I was chronically tired, like I just couldn't catch my sleep up properly. But after that I was pretty fine. It was just the first month I was like exhausted, and that was probably the hardest part for me about the after part of giving birth, was having to look after a newborn and work it all out while I was so chronically tired. That was probably really difficult as well. And then the final thing, which is something that I did not expect at all, was night sweats. So that was whenever I went to sleep at night, I would wake up and my entire pillow and like the sheet would be absolutely soaking with sweat. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just the hormones like leaving your body or whatever, but I was so much sweat, and like, yeah. So I would recommend getting, again, absorbent pads, putting them under your sheets, and kind of changing your pillows regularly. Put a couple of pillowcases on your pillow to kind of protect the pillow, because yeah, that was not something I expected to happen at all, and I had really like a really lot of sweat as well. So just watch out for that in case that happens to you as well. And I'll just mention the aftercare that you get from the NHS. Again, all free. The NHS is amazing. And what you get is you get visitors from your midwife initially, and then after that from the health visitor. So the midwife is kind of about caring for you mostly, and of course for your baby, but the midwife's much better if there's something wrong with you. And what she did when she came was she checked my episiotomy stitches to make sure there wasn't an infection, she checked my blood pressure, she just checked me over to make sure I was fine, and then she also checked the baby as well. So this was a really great like thing. She came the day after I gave birth, and then every other day for like about a week or so, which, yeah, it was great. It just gave us peace of mind that we were doing everything kind of right, that the baby was kind of okay, like that he was gaining weight properly, all those things that you kind of worry about. you get put at peace, your mind gets put at peace, because yeah, she's checking you over and telling you you're doing a good job. And then after that you get visits from your health visitor, which she is more focused on the baby's health. She doesn't necessarily check you over. It's more like the baby and like just kind of development of the baby. And I believe you get visits from your health visitor pretty much all the time that they're a child, maybe like yearly, I'm not sure. So I had visits for like the first couple of months every so often, and then after that my next visit is going to be when he's a year old. And actually you get a lot of visits from them. So I got the minimum number of visits I think you can actually get, because we were getting on so well, and that was 8 visits, which is, when you think about it, that's quite a lot of visits, and that's quite a lot of resource that they're putting in. So that's amazing that you get so many visits. And if you'd wanted, you could have got loads more visits, and whenever I want I can phone her up. So if you're struggling a bit, you might want visits for longer periods of time, so you might get like 16 visits, 20 visits. And whenever I feel like I want to ask her a question, I can just phone her up, she'll come out and visit. So it's actually a really, really great service. Yeah, no complaints about that at all. Oh, and she also reminds you about to go for your injection appointments. She reminds you to register the birth, things you might not be thinking about because you're so busy looking after your baby. She kind of reminds you about, which I found really, really helpful. Also, I can hear my baby crying, so I need to wrap this up quick. The other things that I would say, she does mental health checks. So if you need to, like if you got postpartum depression, she's going to pick up on it and she's going to get you the help that you need. She refers you to different services like that if you need it. And I got referred to like a money advice service, because if you ask for it, she could refer you to those places, and they'll phone you up and give you advice as well. So that's all like really, really great. And the last thing that I want to mention before I go after this long video is, this is for the UK. I think this might be Scotland only, not 100% sure, I would just check. But you can sign up for the minor ailment service, and this is essentially gives you free stuff for your baby, so free medicine. So mainly what we've used this for is baby paracetamol. So when you get your injections for your baby, you give them baby paracetamol for some of them. You get that free from the minor ailments service if you sign up. So you sign up for that at your local pharmacy, like your local Boots, or somewhere anywhere else that does it. Just ask them for the minor ailments service, and they will do that for you. So that's a great service to remember about, and it saves you a bit of money, you know, as well, if you're a wee bit skint after having a baby. So I would highly recommend that. I'm going to go now because my baby is crying and I need to go and see to him. But I hope you're having a fabulous day. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment down below and let me know if you're pregnant and how far along you are and what you're excited about. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.